welcome back. More royal celebrations in just a moment. But first, one of the many Australians here today has been taking a look at other parts of England. And Keith Geary actually called to have tea with Lord Montagu at Beaulieu.
Well, they reckon an Englishman's home is his castle. Of course, that's not the case for everybody here in England, but for the fortunate few, there's still the odd little place like this tucked away. We're at Beaulieu, which is down by the Solent, and it's in Hampshire. Now, yours truly has managed to con himself an invite. And it's Reggie Deej, look at this. Lord Montagu requests the pleasure of the company of Mr. Keith Geary at Palace House, Beaulieu, for afternoon tea. Well, it's nearly tea time, so we'll pop in and see how it goes, all right?
Good afternoon, Keith.
G'day, Trev. How's
Welcome
things?
to Beaulieu.
Thanks, mate.
Come in, please.
Good on you.
Trev's been butling here 24 years, man and boy. Pretty rare these days, butlers.
Will you follow me then, Keith, please?
Good as gold, mate.
Struth, some of these pictures are so old they're cracked. It's a shame, really. The current Baron Montagu of Beaulieu is related to all sorts of well-known names. Mary Queen of Scots, James I, Charles I and II, Sir Walter Scott.
Keep you fit this, Trev?
Certainly does.
Walking through a place like Palace House, you get the feeling they're all still around, watching. James I used to visit the place in the 17th century, and this bloke commemorates the fact that the first Royal Command performance of football took place here in 1613, after the bear baiting and before the bull baiting.
Mr. Keith Geary, Lord Montagu.
Thanks, Trev.
Hello, how are you?
How are you, sir? You well?
Sit down and have some tea.
Thanks very much indeed. Just take this off.
Right. Well, come sit on the sofa here.
Good as gold. Here we go.
Right, good.
Well, how long have your family been, as it were, in residence here at Beaulieu?
Well, really since 1538, when my ancestor bought Beaulieu from Henry VIII at the time of the dissolution of the monasteries.
So you're pretty much settled in then,
I think so. Milk and sugar.
Thank you very much.
When Henry VIII dissolved a monastery, he didn't muck around. The abbey took 100 years to build, but it came down like a concrete kite to provide stones for Henry's Solent forts. Oh, the radar's extra.
What's the best bit about being a lord? And what's the worst bit about being a lord?
I think the best bit is sometimes helps you book a table in a restaurant. And the worst bit is if you get caught speeding, it's in every newspaper.
Not really surprising that his lordship occasionally gets nicked for speeding. Look what he keeps in his garage. But to be fair, the place does double up as the National Motor Museum, and it includes a vehicle which is familiar to many Australians.
Well, Bluebird, of course, I was a great friend of Donald Campbell, and of course it gave us great delight when he broke the record in Lake Hour. And then some years ago, we were able to persuade the widow to sell it to the nation, and the nation helped us buy it, and now it's a permanent exhibit here, together with three other land speed record cars, the Golden Arrow and the two Sunbeams. Do you like a cucumber sandwich or a brandy snap?
Well, I'm not big on the green things, but I love it. I got a sweet tooth. What about you?
Yeah, or the brandy too.
Oh, is it real brandy in here?
No, no.
Oh.
Used to be.
Times are crook, aren't they?
What do you think you're doing, messing up our aristocracy of England?
I wasn't messing anything up. I had a cup of tea with a bloke. We had a bit of a chat, and I had a look around his garage.
And now you've brought some more people with you.
A whole bunch of them. These are some descendants from that first criminal fleet that sailed away from here 200 years ago. Liz, how did you find out that your allies were crims? Yeah, how did you know? Yeah. How long have you known?
No, what a minute,
We're on, love. This is happening. I know you don't believe it, but it is. When did you first find out that they had
actually, when I was a child at school, because
Yeah?
my mother used to tell us about it. It was on her side of the family and tell us about their ancestry and so forth.
Can you tell us in public
And
what these relatives actually did to get sent out?
Yes.
What were they convicted of?
Well, they both convicted boy and girl of thieving.
Oh.
She took...
Can I have my wallet back?
Count the silver. She stole in December dry goods, and which we think must have been for a Christmas pudding
Christmas
or
Eve.
so. Yes, because it was dried raisins, a pint of butter, as they called it then, and various items like that.
Right, I'll just pop back to Hugh for a second. How did you discover?
Well, I discovered it when I had a look at the 1828 census. And through that, I suddenly realised that I had a forebear who was born in 1790 in Sydney. Very quickly went to the Society of Australian Genealogists, and within hours knew that I was a first fleeter.
I think, look, there's too many criminals here. I'm going to get out. I'm going to say, I'm going to put this on and say the replica fleet is now about 3 hours into the 8-month voyage to Australia. And before they left the Solent, the fleet was inspected by the Queen and Prince Philip.
The Queen and Prince Philip boarded the frigate HMS Sirius shortly after 2:30 at Portsmouth Naval Base. They were bound for the Mother Bank in the Solent, where they were due to keep a date with history. The royal couple waved to the crowds as HMS Sirius headed out to the entrance of Portsmouth Harbour. They were travelling on the frigate that bears the same name as the original flagship of the First Fleet, Sirius. It also happens to be the adopted ship of the city of Portsmouth, and a 21-gun salute was fired from HMS Dolphin. It would take the Queen's squadron some 20 minutes to reach the Mother Bank, where the replica First Fleet was waiting to be reviewed. The Queen's squadron was travelling along one of the most historic naval waterways in the world. For this is the way that British fleets have sailed out from Portsmouth across the centuries to defend Britain's maritime interests. In days of old, we won an empire forged on the backs of wooden ships made from New Forest oak. Everyone wanted to salute the Queen, including the Red Arrows you see here, who put on an impeccable display as they flew over the Isle of Wight. 8 miles out in the Solent, 11 square riggers lay at anchor, waiting for the Queen to pass down the line to review them. This, then, was the site that the organisers had dreamed of for 10 years, to find a fleet capable of withstanding the 13,000-mile reenactment voyage to Australia. Looking at this, it's worth remembering it was all very different 200 years ago when the First Fleet set out. There were no hurrahs, no brave words from the King of the day, George III. Convicts had never heard of Australia and were fearful of their fate. The journey then was rather like taking a wooden spaceship to Mars. That's the Bounty there that finally passed Board of Trade inspection only hours before anchoring off the Mother Bank. But what did Dr. King make of it all?
Dr. King, the great adventure is underway.
Well, the Queen did what she said she'd do. She's raised the flag, which, as I understand it, was Uniform Whiskey Romeo Victor 1. And that's said to us now to weigh anchors, heave away, and have a pleasant voyage to our destination. Now that, of course, is Botany Bay, and we couldn't have hoped, as Australians, for any greater start to the bicentennial celebrations than to have Her Majesty the Queen farewelling our First Fleet. And I think I can say for Australia, we're thrilled to the core.
Is it an emotional moment for you, personally?
Well, I cried this morning at the religious service which the naval chaplain had on board, and I'm so deeply moved now, it's impossible to express it. And I think I speak for hundreds of thousands of Australians. We're proud of our origins, and we're very honoured that the Queen has now seen fit to farewell the First Fleet and start Australia's birthday party. It's Happy Birthday, Australia.
The original convicts obviously had a very hard time on that first voyage. Is it going to be a tough one for you?
Well, the celebrations are over. The work now begins. This expedition has taken 10 years of hard labour to mount. Now we have 8 months and 1 week during which we have to fight our way through stormy seas to Australia. And we've got paying passengers on board, more people joining us through bounty voyages in Australia every day, and we have to pull as a team to try and get there on time and safely. And I can't tell you now whether we're going to do that, and that's why the eyes of Australia are watching us with apprehension, and I hope a few prayers as well.
What are you looking forward to the most?
I'm looking forward to sailing through the Heads in Sydney. And I think everybody in Australia will be watching as the First Fleet sail in. And if we can, God willing, arrive there safely, then the whole adventure has been worthwhile.
Dr. King, Godspeed.
Thank you. We need all the prayers we can get.
And so HMS Sirius completed her review of the line. The signal was given, proceed to your destination, and it was westward ho for the Needles and out to the sea beyond. Ahead of the little fleet, a 7-leg journey, stopping off at Tenerife, Rio de Janeiro, the Cape of Good Hope, Mauritius, Botany Bay, and Sydney Cove, Australia. The fleet must make landfall in Sydney on January the 26th next year, to coincide with the start of Australia's 200th birthday. The Prince and the Princess of Wales will be there to wish the country a happy birthday. It's worth remembering, looking at these pictures, that when the Commodore of the First Fleet made landfall in 1788, he wrote, "We have lit a shining light among all the nations of the Southern Hemisphere. How grand is the prospect that lies before this youthful nation. As we know, the nation grew up to be the 6th greatest in the world. We wish the fleet Godspeed and a fair wind for Australia."
Well, with me now are the children of the man who organised the fleet, Dr. Jonathan King. And here they all are. There's Molly, Loanna and Bryony. Now then, you've just waved off your father, haven't you?
Yeah.
Was it sad?
Yeah, it was really sad.
Did you cry?
Yes,
Oh,
a little
dear.
bit.
But you're going to see him soon. You won't, I mean, although he's away for 8 months, you joined the ship at some stage, don't you?
Yeah, Fremantle.
Fremantle. Now, you gave the Queen a posy of flowers. You burst your way through the security. What was in the posy of flowers, Loanna?
There was some bottle brush and gum nuts and what else was
Kangaroo
there?
paw.
Yeah,
you
kangaroo
said.
paw.
What's kangaroo paw?
It's just this yellow little flower shaped kind of like a kangaroo's paw.
Wow, what did the Queen say to you?
She liked it and she said thank you very much.
And what did the Queen say to you?
She just said it all the same things. She just said it all together.
Did she? What about Prince Philip? What did he say to you?
He didn't really say anything.
Oh, no. That's why you couldn't answer me. What did he say to you? Can you remember?
He said, "Is there any wattle in here?" And we said no. And he said, "How dare you leave it out of there?" And then he laughed.
What's wattle?
It's an Australian flower. Represents Australia.
And you tell me about you not being allowed really to give him the posy, and you did.
Yeah, well, there's this sort of director, and he was in charge of all the people who were standing around in the band and everything. And he'd said it in the beginning that we weren't allowed to, that we were allowed to give them the.
And then he said you weren't.
And then he came back and said only Loanna can. Then he came back and said you might not. And then he came back after that and said you definitely can't. So we just sneaked in.
You're terrible, the three of you. Pioneering spirit. Thank you very much for coming, though. It's lovely. Thank you, girls. Well, the Queen's final call today has been to the Isle of Wight, and Mark Jordan was there, of course, as she completed a very busy day of celebrations.
200 years on from the First Fleet sailing a mass deportation in the name of the King, today's Royal Majesty was able to raise a smile in salute of the Aussies as she went on a walkabout round Ryde. Those rogue subjects, once anchored on Mother Bank here off the island, have now come a long way since.
Seventh generation.
So quickly, what were their crimes?
Stealing a bolt of cloth and some money, and food and money. And then the other one was a grand larcenist.
Really, and you're dead proud?
Too right.
You're convinced that this place was the last they saw?
Oh, definitely, not Portsmouth. No, well, I wanted to get my photo.
Meanwhile, just off the coast came the Red Arrows with their daring salute to those reluctant risk-takers of 200 years ago. They were condemned to Australia, and it was the theme of the Queen's speech.
Those who sailed for Botany Bay were even more uncertain about what they would find there than the first space travellers who set foot on the moon. And in the very short space of 200 years, the fifth continent, from being the home of a few hundred, become a thriving community of 16 million people.
So Audrey, there you were, sitting here, and she came up.
Well, it was the Duke, actually, and he asked us if we had good brakes. I think he thought we were going to run over his toes.
What, on your trike?
Yes, that's right. So I'm hoping when the Queen comes out to be able to present her with this.
Have you enjoyed today?
Oh, absolutely wonderful. It's been marvellous.
We've all had a wonderful day, have you?
Yes, indeed.
Now tell me, we've done all this in Portsmouth. What's going to happen when they get to Sydney? You're going to lay on a party?
I'm going to try and figure out how to get to Sydney to be there on the 26th of Jan next year, because I think it's going to be an enormous party for the whole country. But Sydney in particular, I think, is going to be the place to be, because the functions that are going to happen are going to be just enormous, completely over the top for Australia.
And Australians have really been glued to their television sets all day today, have they? Watching all
Yes,
this?
sent me mum some quick stick, so she'll be there. You know, she'll be all right.
Stick?
Oh, you just go, and it stays there. Oh, I'm sorry, Finn.
Thanks very much. Well,
all right,
Keith Geary, it has been a marvellous day here in Portsmouth. We've thoroughly enjoyed ourselves.
Yep.
Thousands have enjoyed the celebrations, including us too. Yes. And now, 200 years after the first convicts left these shores, there is another fleet on its way to Australia. From all of us here, are you ready, girls and boys? Goodbye! Whee! Cheer, cheer! Woo!
Sixth.